Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about what truly drives a person to embrace the path of darkness? What if evil is not born, but shaped by pain, loss, and ambition? In today's video, you will uncover the tragic and chilling story of the boy who became Lord Voldemort. Tom Riddle, also known as the Dark Lord, he who must not be named, the very embodiment of terror in the wizarding world. He is the villain we all know, a ruthless sorcerer who stops at nothing to achieve his goals. But he wasn't always like this. Once, he was just a boy, one who learned, dreamed, and even had friends. At what point did he transform into the feared Dark Lord? Did the darkness take root in his childhood, or was it a decision he made as an adult? And what was the turning point that led him down this path? Let's unravel the mystery.
Wrap yourself in your invisibility cloak. Now let's begin.
The origins of Tom Riddle. Tom was born into a broken family. His mother, Merope Gaunt, was a pure-blood witch, a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin. His father, Tom Riddle Sr., was an ordinary muggle. But their love was built on deception. Merope used a love potion to make Tom Sr. fall for her. When she stopped using it, he abandoned her, leaving her pregnant and alone. Weak and destitute, Merope gave birth to her son in a muggle orphanage, where she died shortly after. And so from the very beginning, Tom Riddle's life was marked by loss, abandonment, and a deep sense of resentment. A troubled childhood. Growing up in the orphanage, Tom was different. Strange things happened around him. Objects moved, animals obeyed his silent commands, and those who crossed him suffered misfortunes. He didn't just have magic, he had control over it, long before he knew what it was. When Albus Dumbledore came to take him to Hogwarts at age 11, the young boy was not surprised. He already knew he was special, he just needed someone to confirm it. The Hogwarts years, a brilliant mind with a dark curiosity. Sorted into Slytherin, Tom quickly became the most gifted student of his generation. His intelligence, charm, and ambition won him followers, students who admired his power and his ability to manipulate others. But Hogwarts also gave him answers about his past. He discovered his connection to Salazar Slytherin and the existence of the Chamber of Secrets. He learned about Horcruxes, the forbidden magic that could grant him immortality. And in his 5th year, he committed his first murder, using the basilisk to kill Myrtle Warren, later known as Moaning Myrtle. By the time he left Hogwarts, Tom Riddle was no longer just a promising student. He had already begun his descent into darkness. The birth of Voldemort. After graduation, Tom sought a position at Hogwarts, but Dumbledore refused him. Rejected, he vanished from the public eye, traveling the world in search of the darkest magic. He delved into forbidden knowledge, seeking ways to cheat death. When he returned, he was no longer Tom Riddle. He had transformed body, mind, and soul into Lord Voldemort. He gathered followers, the Death Eaters, and unleashed terror upon the wizarding world. The war had begun. What truly drove him to evil? Was Voldemort born a monster, or was he made into one? A combination of factors shaped his descent into darkness.
Orphanhood and abandonment. He was never loved, never wanted. The pain of rejection festered within him.
Pride and lineage. Learning. He was the heir of Slytherin, fueled his superiority complex.
Unmatched ambition. He didn't just want power, he wanted to be the greatest sorcerer who ever lived. Resentment and rage. He despised his muggle father for abandoning him and his mother for being weak.
These forces twisted him into the Dark Lord we know, but the question remains, was there ever a moment when he could have chosen differently, or was his fate sealed from the very start? Voldemort's rise to power was not sudden. It was a slow, methodical transformation that took years. After leaving Hogwarts, Tom Riddle disappeared from the public eye. What happened during those missing years is still a mystery, but one thing is certain: when he returned, he was no longer the charming, handsome young man everyone once knew. His appearance had changed, his presence radiated fear, and his magic had grown darker than anyone had ever seen before. He had traveled far and wide, seeking out the most powerful dark wizards, learning from those who had already walked the path he intended to follow. He dabbled in the darkest of magic, committing acts so vile that they left a permanent mark on his soul. He studied ancient spells, experimented with forbidden rituals, and most importantly, he learned how to split his soul. The creation of Horcruxes was his greatest discovery, allowing him to anchor himself to life through multiple objects. One Horcrux was not enough. He wanted more. He wanted to be truly immortal. By the time he resurfaced, he had already created several Horcruxes, each one a piece of his humanity, locked away to ensure he could never truly die. But with each split, he became less human. His face grew paler, his features sharper, his eyes colder. He was evolving into something monstrous, something beyond human comprehension. His first goal was to build a loyal following. He had always been charismatic, able to sway others to his cause with words alone. Now, however, he did not just seek followers, he sought disciples, those who would willingly give their lives for him. He called them the Death Eaters. At first, they were young, ambitious wizards who believed in his ideology, who saw in him a leader that could bring about a new era. But as his power grew, fear became his greatest weapon. Those who joined him later did so not out of loyalty, but out of terror. He moved in the shadows, gathering power, testing the limits of his magic. He needed to make a statement to show the world that he was no longer just Tom Riddle. His first major act of terror was the murder of his own father. Tom Riddle Sr. had lived his life as if nothing had ever happened, as if he had never abandoned his wife and unborn child. Voldemort returned to Little Hangleton and exacted his revenge. He did not simply kill his father, he erased his entire Muggle lineage, ensuring that no one from his bloodline would ever exist again. And with that act, he created another Horcrux. It was a message to the world, a declaration that he had severed his past, that Tom Riddle was gone forever. Only Lord Voldemort remained. The wizarding world at first did not take him seriously. The Ministry of Magic was slow to react, dismissing him as just another dark wizard, one of many who had come and gone. But they did not understand what they were dealing with. He was not just powerful, he was brilliant, strategic, and utterly ruthless. His war was not fought in the open, not at first. He struck from the shadows, eliminating threats before they could rise against him. He manipulated, he deceived, he turned friends against each other. Those who resisted disappeared, those who wavered were persuaded, and those who opposed him outright were slaughtered. The First Wizarding War had begun. Voldemort's rise was swift. His forces grew in number, infiltrating every level of magical society. He had spies within the Ministry, informants within Hogwarts, and loyalists in every major wizarding family. He did not just attack head-on, he played the long game, setting traps, planting seeds of discord, watching as the wizarding world slowly crumbled from within. The more powerful he became, the less human he seemed. His physical transformation mirrored his internal descent. His face lost its definition, his features became snake-like, his eyes burned red, his voice carried an unnatural coldness, devoid of emotion. Fear became his greatest ally, and soon no one dared speak his name. But even the greatest of tyrants have weaknesses. Despite all his power, despite his immortality, Voldemort was obsessed with prophecy. He feared the unknown. He sought control over everything, but there was one thing he could not control: the future. And when he learned of a prophecy that spoke of a child who could defeat him, he acted immediately. He would not allow fate to decide his downfall. That child was Harry Potter. It was a moment that should have solidified his invincibility. He had killed so many before, one more child should not have mattered. But this time, fate intervened. His killing curse rebounded, and in an instant everything he had built crumbled. He was no longer a man. He was no longer even a being of flesh and blood. He had become a mere fragment, a wraith, a shadow of his former self. For the first time, Voldemort felt fear. He was forced into hiding, his body destroyed, his followers scattered. He wandered the earth as a mere echo, barely clinging to existence. His Horcruxes had saved him from death, but they could not restore what he had lost. He was trapped in limbo, neither alive nor dead, searching desperately for a way back. And so he waited. For years he existed as nothing more than a whisper, a nightmare that haunted the edges of the wizarding world. His name was still feared, but many believed he was truly gone. The Ministry proclaimed victory. The wizarding world moved on. But Voldemort never truly left. He was patient. He knew that one day an opportunity would present itself, and when it did, he would return. He would reclaim what was his. He would finish what he had started.
And he did.
But the Voldemort who returned was different. If he had been terrifying before, now he was something else entirely. Death had stripped away the last remnants of his humanity. He was colder, more calculated, more merciless than ever before. He had seen the other side, had come face to face with what awaited him beyond life, and he had no intention of ever returning there. His second rise was even more devastating than the first. This time he did not hide in the shadows. He did not wait for the world to react. He struck with full force, reclaiming his place as the Dark Lord. The wizarding world had grown complacent in his absence. They were not ready for his return. But even in his triumph, there was one thing he could never escape.
Harry Potter.
The boy who had undone him once before was still out there, still a threat. And as much as Voldemort had prepared, as much as he had fortified himself against every possible weakness, fate had already set its course. In the end, it was not just magic or prophecy that defeated him. It was the very thing he had rejected his entire life: love, the power he had always dismissed, the force he had never understood. He had believed that fear was the strongest weapon. He had built his empire on it. But love was stronger. And when the final battle came, when the Elder Wand refused to serve him, when Harry Potter stood before him, unafraid, Voldemort faced something he had never truly known before: defeat. His soul, already torn beyond repair, was finally destroyed. The Dark Lord, the most feared sorcerer of all time, was gone. Not with an explosion, not with a final curse, but with the realization that everything he had built had turned to dust. And in the end, there was nothing left.